The New York Mets have acquired their frontline starting pitcher. Welcome to Queens, Freddy, Peralta, and Tobias Myers. David Stearns. He's owed an apology by a lot of you Met fans. You're watching Mets Daily. I'm your host, Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Live. Make sure you hit that like button below. Hit that subscribe button as well, and share the channel with your friends, your family, any Met fan right now. And follow me at Jake Brown Live. Now listen, if you're a Met fan, you got to be feeling good right now. This is an offseason that has been all over the place, that took a while to materialize. But what the Mets have done in the last week changes the course of the franchise. I hate to sound dramatic, at least for the 2026 season, when you're talking about how good the 2026 Mets could be. I think about a week ago, we were all saying something's coming. I said something's coming. Now, some of you said they suck, fire Stearns. I don't want one fire Stearns coming. David Stearns, on his wedding anniversary with his wife yesterday, started the day introducing Bo Bichette in a press conference. In the middle of the day, he said, what? Now listen, it might have been signing Luis Garcia first. I forget time-wise which came first, but he introduced Bo Bichette. He signed Luis Garcia, which we'll talk about a little bit later, minor move. And he ended the day acquiring Freddy Peralta and Tobias Myers in exchange for Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat. Listen, you got to give to get. The people mad about trading the future, I understand, but what you're getting is a true frontline starter. Freddy Peralta is coming off the best year of his career. 17-6, a 2.7 ERA, 176 and 2/3 innings, 204 strikeouts, a whip of 1.07, a WAR of 5.5. This is a guy who's had his best year, 33 starts. This is a guy who is just 29 years old in the prime of his career. He turns 30 in June. This is a guy with a career, 3.59 ERA over 7 seasons. This is what the Mets needed. And he's not Tariq Skubal, but I do think he's as good or better than Framber Valdez. And he cost $8 million. Now, the naysayers of this trade will say, one, you gave up too much, and they'll say you traded for a rental. My retort to that is this. We have no idea what next season looks like, guys. The 2027 season, we don't know. There could be a new collective bargaining agreement. There might be a lockout. We just don't know what next year looks like. You have to play for now. You have to play for this year because next year they could say, we're implementing a salary cap, salary floor. Everything could change completely. So I think you have to play for now. Also, a side note to that. If Freddy Peralta is great in a Mets uniform, and he loves it here, great clubhouse guy, everyone raves about him in Milwaukee. He mentored the young guys. He still is young, not even 30 years old. You can just go out and sign him to an extension or pay him next year once you figure out if there'll be a lockout or not. There's no rush either way. Because it's the one you could, knock on wood if he gets hurt. Maybe you don't bring him back. If he's elite, you say, we'll sign him. His agent is not Scott Boras. He's probably not going to be as hard to work with his agent, and you still have lots of money with Steve Cohen. So I'm not worried about that. The return, also Tobias Myers. We'll get to Tobias in a second. I want to dedicate a section to him because not enough people are talking about what he brings to this deal as an added element to the trade. The Mets said no to Jet Williams, Brandon Sproat for Freddy Peralta. They clearly, obviously, as it's happened, have said yes to Jet Williams and Brandon Sproat for Freddy Peralta and Tobias Myers. So I want to dedicate time to Tobias in just a second. But giving up Jet Williams, Brandon Sproat, listen, the Mets have a lot of starting pitching. Now they really have a lot of starting pitching. Brandon Sproat might have made the opening day rotation, but probably wasn't. He was 7th or 8th on the depth chart in this rotation. Sure, they're losing a good starter with years of control, but we just don't know yet if Brandon Sproat's going to be the level one day of Freddy Peralta. And, we don't know about Jet Williams. I don't think he was ever a Stearns guy. That was the previous regime. He's not like Carson Bench, who's, going to get a chance to play in 2026. Mind you, Jet Williams never lit up any level for a long time in, the minor league. He never, tore it up in the minor leagues. In 2025, 261, 363 on base, 17 homers, 52 RBIs, 34 stolen bases. Strong numbers. He didn't, terrorize minor league pitching. He has not in the minors hit for a ton of power. Now, I get it. It's only been 4 years, 2022, 23, 24, 25. 22, only 10 games. So really 3 years. 23, 121 games. 2024, he was hurt all year. He only played in 33 games. and 130 in 2025. He's a lottery ticket. We have no idea if Jet Williams is actually going to pan out to be a great player. He had a strong stretch in AA, 10 and 37 in 96 games with 390 on base. We just don't know about him. And where was he going to play on the Mets? Now, he's played short, center, and second. The Mets have, Luis Robert for now. They also have Carson Bench. They have Lindor at short. They have Simeon for the next 3 years at second base. So I don't think Jet Williams is playing. So he was very expendable, and Brandon Sproat's expendable. Like I said, you have pitching. You have Nolan McLean. You kept Jonah Tong. You still have Christian Scott. You still have Jack Wenninger. You have a lot of pitching here, and you should be excited about that. So to me, this is a home run move in a week of home run moves. The Mets in the last, 5-6 days, on Friday this started, they've signed Bo Bichette, they've traded for Luis Robert, and they've traded for Freddy Peralta and Tobias Myers. And, you look at what I said about the winning culture. I tweeted this last night, and I thought it was important to mention. An underrated element to the Mets landing Freddy Peralta, who's regarded as a fantastic clubhouse presence. The Mets have had a massive shift this offseason from these guys with big egos that didn't win to highly regarded clubhouse guys with a track record of winning. Alonso, McNeil, Nimmo, Diaz, all with just those 2 playoff appearances. Bo Bichette, 4 playoff appearances in 7 years. That's almost, more than every other year he's made the playoffs in Toronto. He just won a pennant, and he hit a huge home run off Ohtani in the World Series. Marcus Semien, 4 playoff appearances, and he's won a World Series. Freddy Peralta, 6 playoff appearances in 8 years. Jorge Polanco, 5 playoff appearances. Between those guys combined, do the math there, 5, and I'm not even include the other guys that they've gotten, like a Luke Weaver or Devin Williams. 5 plus 6, that's 11, plus 4, 15, plus 4, 19. Versus the 8 playoff appearances, all from the same team. So really, 5, 11, 15, 19 versus 2 playoff appearances. You know what? Coach Green used to say, we want winners. The Mets want winners. And they're putting them together. And Tobias Myers looked like a winner when he shut the Mets down before that Pete Alonso home run game. And sorry I mentioned Pete Alonso to some of you, but at this point I would hope you forgot about him because I've got people tweeting me still. You let a franchise legend, it's like letting Tom Seaver go. Please stop. If you put Pete Alonso in the class of Tom Seaver, you need your brain checked. Tobias Myers, shut the Mets down in that Game 3 in the wild card before the Brewers bullpen blew it and the Mets advanced in 2024. Mets didn't forget about that when they acquired him in this deal, and I think he's an underrated element to this deal. Let me tell you why. Tobias Myers is that Swiss Army knife pitcher the Mets badly need on this team. 2 years in the league, he's essentially free. He hasn't even hit arbitration yet. He's $800,000. He's free for the Mets. And for them, I think for now, he's going to be a long man that potentially has to make a spot start if there are injuries. But 2024, he made 25 starts. He had a 3 ERA in his rookie year, looked really good at 138 innings. 2025, he was mostly a reliever, 22 games, 6 of those starts, 50 and 2/3 with a 3.55 ERA. This is a young talent that is 27 years old that the Mets can use at all different elements. They don't have a long man currently. Like, they can move one of the stars to bullpen. They have technically a long man, but Myers has done both. He started and been a long man, and that's the kind of guy the Mets need. And the fact that they were able to get him in this deal, I think, is underrated because, yes, Freddy Peralta can walk. Tobias Myers can't. Now, listen, he could if he doesn't like New York. Like, he could say, I'm demanding a trade. But Tobias Myers is here for the long term and is going to be a part of the Mets. And this is an underrated element because what if he ends up being a stud? He's only pitched 2 years and he's looked pretty good. What if Tobias Myers ends up being this great long man or even starting pitcher in this rotation? If they move Senga or if they move on from Senga, Peterson's going to be a free agent. Manaea's only here another year after this year. So Clay Holmes, same thing. So Tobias Myers, they're looking at as a potential guy for the long term. You have Nolan McLean for the long term. You have Christian Scott coming back now for the long term. You're starting to think like, the Mets are putting young pieces together that, once Senga's gone, once Holmes is gone, once Manaea's gone, they're going to be okay. They're going to have young talent. And that's what you got to think about when you're like, oh, we gave up too much. They're putting like an Avengers of young talent together that in 1, 2, 3 years and beyond, they're placing themselves in a really good position to be a winner year after year after year. And that's the essential thing to the New York Mets. So I'm fired up about getting Tobias Myers as well, and I'm so pumped. Freddy Peralta, Nolan McLean, Sean Manaea, Clay Holmes, David Peterson. Listen, Kodai Senga, if you want to keep him, he's your 6. You could still go 6-man rotation if you did keep Senga. You have Christian Scott in the wings. You have Jonah Tong maybe in the second half next year. And now you have Tobias Myers, who can be a starter as well. Absolute no-brainer. They also help out that bullpen by adding veteran Luis Garcia. Now, it's confusing because there's the hitter Luis Garcia, but there's also the reliever Luis Garcia. And I love this move for the Mets in terms of, cost to almost nothing. You gave him $1.75 million. It'll get to $3 million with his incentives. You had a 4.1 ERA overall, but with the Angels, 18 innings at 2 ERA last year. He bounced around a few different teams. He was on the Dodgers, the Nationals, and the Angels. But this is a guy that, has been in the league for 13 years. Yes, he is 38. He'll be 39 next week. So he is older. But for 1 year, it's not like he's lost it. He clearly showed he's still got something left in the tank. Overall, he actually had that was my mistake. He had an overall 3.42 ERA. I have on the graphic there, 4.1. 3.42. He just pitched for 3 teams. That was in the National League. 3.42, 55 and a third inning. So it's pretty good. For a guy who's going to be a depth reliever, middle reliever, you just added Tobias Myers and Luis Garcia to your middle relief. You still have Dylan Ross, who I think is going to be part of this team. And then the big guys at the back end, in Weaver, in Raley, in Minter, and Devin Williams. I get it. Devin Williams is a question mark. Weaver could be a question mark. But if they pan out, I really think the 2026 Mets right now are cooking with gas. And I think we are going to see a special season ahead. And you may disagree with me, but I think the 2026 Mets, at least on paper right now, are better than the 2025 Mets. Let me know in the comments you agree or disagree. What do you think of the move? Did they give up too much? You got to give to get, guys. You gave away 2 top 5 prospects. You got an ace, and you got a really good Swiss Army knife pitcher. To me, I think it's a perfectly even deal. Good trade for the Brewers, trading a rental in Peralta. Great trade for the Mets as well, getting themselves the starter that they so desperately needed. Peralta isn't this horse that's going to throw 8, 9 innings every time, but he's the guy that can give you 6 innings, a 1-run ball several times. And that's what the Mets need. They just need a starter to get them to the 7th, 8th inning. And Freddy Peralta can do that. And if he's only going 5, he's going to go a strong 5. Maybe he throws a lot of pitches, but he's going to give you 5 innings of 1-run ball, and he's going to do it consistent. Look what he did last year, 17-6, a 2.70 ERA. That's the kind of guy the Mets need in this rotation. Let's go Mets, baby. I'm fired up today. What a 48 hours. We got our Gold Glove center fielder. We got our ace. We just got Bo Bichette. I don't want to hear about Alonso, Nimmo, McNeil, Diaz. They're out with the rotten core. They're in with the winning core. And now they're putting together winners. And the Mets are going to win. So we'll see you at Citi Field this year. Can't wait. The people, I tweeted out about, the Mets ticket office with that smiling, turning thing, calling the people who canceled tickets in December because the Mets didn't re-sign Pete or Diaz, traded McNeil, if you care about that. And I said, they're going to call back this morning, say, you reconsidering? Because the Mets are going to be good. We'll read your comments and we'll talk more about it tomorrow. In terms of, I'll close with the final piece. We're not going to get to comments today because there's just too much that happened today. We'll read the comments again tomorrow. So keep commenting. We'll be comment heavy on a Friday. Mailbag Friday tomorrow. But in terms of next move, I think big moves, they're done. Like, I don't want, people are like, go sign Framber. They're not signing Framber, all those guys. I think they're pretty much done in the rotation. I know some of you still think there's question marks. I think they're going to be better than last year. Manaea was hurt all last year. David Peterson was an all-star. He just broke down in the second half. And Clay Holmes, I thought, was solid for his first ever year as a starting pitcher. I think he's going to develop on that. I'm sure he's working on his body this offseason to make sure he's ready for a full season again. But I actually think this rotation is fairly stacked. And if Nolan McLean looks like he did, when he came, the time he got up, mid-August, the Mets are going to be dangerous. They're going to be a problem for teams. And the Dodgers are still better. We know that. But we could see a Mets-Dodgers NLCS again, and that would be fun. I think the next move will be complementary pieces, relievers. Listen, I still want Yandy Diaz. I got to mention him. That would really just complete this lineup. I don't think it'll happen, but you just never know with David Stearns at this point. This guy's cooking up, acquiring an ace on his wife's anniversary. They're at a steak dinner, and he gets a call. Hey, happy anniversary, David. Let's finish this deal. Perfect deal. Send it in. Hey, honey, I love you. It's been our 20. I mean, what a stud. Stearns masterclass. Say you're sorry to the Mets president of baseball operations. Say you're sorry to King Cohen. The Mets are here to stay. We'll see you at City. We'll talk to you tomorrow right here on Mets Daily.